Welcome everyone to a new update from the International Commission of Jurists on the impact of the measures undertaken in this COVID-19 pandemics on human rights and the rule of law. I am Massimo Frigo, I'm Senior Legal Advisor with the ICJ, and today we are going to explore and assess what's happened in a very important European country, Poland. We are joined by human rights lawyer and law experts, Maria Ejchart-Dubois. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone.
And for those who don't know the format, this is going to be really a chat on what's the situation in the country. You are free to leave us any comment you may have, and we will try to address them at the end of the webcast. So, for the situation that we have now, in some European countries now, we are starting to deconfine, but what has been, Maria, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemics on Poland? And before you answer, I should say Maria Ejchart-Dubois is a human rights lawyer in Poland. She has been working with the Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, the largest NGO in Poland, for nearly 20 years. She's a member of the Social Council on the Ombudsman Office, a co-chair of the Expert Committee on the National Preventive Mechanism, and a co-founder of the Free Courts Initiative. So a very, very experienced human rights lawyer. So we're really, really happy to have you with us. So welcome. And I jump immediately on the question of what's going on in Poland. How has these pandemics affected the country?
Thank you, Massimo. Thank you for the nice introduction, and hello, everyone. Thanks for this question, and thanks for inviting me here, especially now when we are here locked down in our countries without any chance to see each other. So starting from your question, I have to say that in my opinion, it is still much too early to assess the real impact on the country and its population. And the real impact will be visible in a few months, in my opinion. Well, for now, we are still struggling with the daily change of our lives. Although it seems to me, also thinking about the special situation in Poland, which I will tell you in a moment, that this impact, thinking about economy and social changes and legal changes, will be more or less similar to the other European countries here in Poland. Well, but what we are here observing, which I think might be interesting. So first of all, we are observing the changes in the labor market. So first of all, something which is common now, that the white collar and intellectual workers have switched on to the online work model, which will certainly change the labor market in the future. For instance, the research conducted at one of the largest private companies in Poland, in which over 10,000 employees took part, showed that more than 30% of them prefer to work 100% online, and only 5% do not want to. So I think it shows that the revolution in thinking about work is coming, and so we cannot be afraid of it, because we cannot changing anymore. We will be working like that more and more. Of course, we have some difficulties here, and like, for instance, the situation of essential workers here in Poland is not covered by adopted regulations, which is a problem. And the other thing is that specificity of Polish labor market has become more than 1 million people have small business. but in fact they work as an employees. This is because of the tax preferences. And now in the current situation, they are not protected by any labor law. So we have, we are facing such a real problem with those employees of small business. We have certainly learned a lot about Polish school education as well, since all the education facilities remain closed. The primary schools and high school education in public schools was performed via the online teaching platforms. But first of all, it turned out how anachronistic the system, the educational system in Poland is. First of all, we already know that teachers and the program are not prepared at all for such a model of work. And despite the infrastructure is, the internet, 98% of homes are within the internet connections, but the online teaching requires the access to the device, the computer, and the connection which works. So it is a problem for us. But it turned out that the thousands of children in Poland now are outside the system, beyond any state control. We do not know what's going on with them because they do not take a part in this online teaching. So they have disappeared from the radars of states and radars of state services. This is, of course, particularly important when it comes to the children from difficult and threatened families. So we have to think about that because we really lost them. The thousands of them really lost them. And furthermore, the lockdown of the education facilities revealed also the problem of students' limited access to the regular meals, which were, for some of them, the only one regular meal was in school. And so now we have no chance to provide it. Well, the other interesting observation, please interrupt me if you want at the moment.
If I can, what you just said is interesting because it's something that we see also in other European countries and also outside of Europe, that this health crisis has actually revealed the incapacity and unpreparedness of states to actually respect and protect and fulfill economic, social, and cultural rights. As we see already the unpreparedness to face the pandemic was an incapacity to prevent, but we see also exactly that the right to identify standard of living, the right to education, the right to food. Now it's revealed even more how much the states, or how few the states actually were doing. Even in Switzerland, we find situation where now we found more than 2,000 people queuing to find relief, find food.
Yeah,
and that's impressive.
That's shocking. Which is extremely important. Is what I said, that we lost the contact with thousands of students in Poland now, because the school has the permanent control over them, and now we have, and especially within those when it comes to the difficult families. It's somehow, well, we have no idea how to work with it, how to fix it somehow, how to make the state to have a control over it.
And legally speaking, what has the states done to face the pandemic? What are the measures and the legal framework that they have used? Because in several countries, the solutions have been really different. And what's happened in Poland?
Well, thinking about the law, it's quite interesting because, well, maybe I can start from the different point.
Yeah.
So, in my reflection, the people have accepted those security measures, government security measures, often violating their rights and privacy, but often without knowing how much their rights have been restricted. And we do not have really a general discussion about the consequences of those restrictions and the fact that we actually live in a situation of lockdown without a formal introduction of the state. So this is something I want to start with. Yeah. When I'm talking about law, because despite the fact that all constitutional conditions have been met, the Polish government refuses to introduce the emergency state of natural disaster.
How come?
So now now that's the moment for a few words about the special situation we face here in Poland and how the COVID was used politically by the government. Because in case of proclaiming the state of natural disaster, no elections can be organized either during the state or 90 days after its termination. So proclaiming the state of natural disaster could have collided with the date of presidential elections, and the elections were scheduled for 10th of May. Presidential elections were scheduled for 10th of May, 2020. So the lack of preparation to organize in-person voting and deficiencies in the draft law on postal voting, which was eventually adopted by the parliament on 7th of May, raised a number of concerns regarding the fairness and security of the elections. So finally, as I said, the elections were not organized at 10th of May, although the government printed already the electoral ballot without any legal basis to do so, with the cost of 4 million Polish zlotys, which is €1 million. And now it's, of course, unclear whenever anyone will be held accountable for this decision. But given the fact that the elections held quickly give the best chances of winning the current president, Andrzej Duda, the government is trying to hold them as soon as possible, regardless of the epidemiological threat. So thanks to this, it is still possible to carry out the presidential elections in May or in June. As I told you, we still don't know when the elections will take place and how they will be held. I mean, in-person voting or postal voting. We still do not know. So this is the main thing. So that all of those restrictions we are facing now are without a formal introduction of the state of emergency, so a state of natural disaster. So this is the first thing we have to know about the law here in Poland and why it's.
So in national law they haven't activated the legal framework to actually restrict.
When it comes to changes in the law, the several hundred provisions were changed in several codes and several dozen laws. So were introduced very quickly without the necessary public consultation after the often at night votes. You know, Polish parliament loved now the overnight voting without any public control. But once again, all of those consequences and special measures, security, was introduced without qualifying it as a lockdown, with proclaiming the state of natural disease. So, as I told you, we have like few hundreds of changes in the law. So it's extremely difficult now to even quickly tell you about those changes we are observing, and it's very with a few other organizations, we are observing every change and we are archiving everything what is going on. But of course, it is extremely difficult now to explain you about all of those changes. But sorry.
No, sorry. And a question is, if you have, of course, there are changes in a sense, and now we have seen also in many countries the problematic of inserting measures, their legal grounds, and sometimes even in Italy, the government reformulated after a month the measures and the legal ground because they discovered that they had to find another legal framework. The question is also, usually you have a court in Berlin, like we say, you have a court where you could challenge certain things, where you could challenge certain measures, and Poland is living a real strong rule of law crisis in that situation. So are there now courts independent courts where you can actually go in Poland to challenge measures if you think they're unconstitutional, for example?
Well, the courts are closed during the states of epidemic, or epidemic threat. The courts are not allowed to hold a hearing in cases that are not specified as urgent. And urgent cases are, pretrial detention cases or the other things like that. So actually we are living without any court control of what is going on. And as well, the so-called COVID Act suspended all pending court imposed time limits in criminal proceedings as well. So now we are like a little bit paralyzed. And the other thing is that the Polish justice system still does not widely use means of electronic communication. So as a result, at the beginning of the state of the epidemic, the Polish courts were unable to easily switch into electronic proceeding and electronically communicate with the parties. So it doesn't work. Next week, the courts are partly coming back to work. So we will see how it will be organized. But still, for the last 2 months, we were like simply without courts here. Only those urgent cases were taken the course. And such a thing as submissions of letter and documents is quite interesting. That the study conducted by the Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights revealed that there's no rules of the submission of letters and documents to the court during the state of epidemic, which directly influences the individual seeking protection in courts, and creates somehow like uncertainty of parties to judicial proceedings.
So it's interesting to see that there may be time to do an election, but there's not time to have the courts function to control it.
Time to print those electoral ballots and everything, but there's no space for courts to work. But we will see how it will start next week.
Okay, so that's a very comprehensive understanding of the situation in Poland, and our time is almost over now. I want to ask you, is there any particular aspect of the impact of this crisis on human rights or on courts that we haven't addressed that you think is particularly concerning? In a sense, how do you think? How do you see the next weeks ahead?
Well, of course, taking in account the really difficult situation in Poland and as you mentioned before, with the rule of law crisis, the further restrictions with no legal and constitutional basis are being introduced in Poland, like for instance the right to assembly, peaceful assembly, which is quite painful for us because we had a lot of peaceful assemblies before the courts and because of this rule of law crisis, the assemblies are severely restricted, and citizens are fined for participating in peaceful protests now. So of course I'm always interested in prisoners' rights, which are really strongly restricted now. So for instance, of course the visitations and work outside the prisons have been severely limited, and these limitations have also affected the right to contact a lawyer. The media reported on cases where, in order to schedule the meeting with an imprisoned client, the lawyer had to present a certificate on their health, even though it is not required by law. and so there are severe restrictions in the context with imprisoned clients. So we actually do not know what is going on inside the prisons, because we do not have contact with prisoners, only telephone contact, but the prisons are closed, which always raised a difficult and situation in a country.
Yeah, it is really concerning, because also, this is just a bit to close as a reminder to the viewers who are not following Poland. Poland is undergoing really a serious also rule of law crisis with moves to actually change judges in the Supreme Court, etc. And up to now, public protests and the action of civil society has been, and also of Judges Association, national and international, has been fundamental to actually counter this really dangerous setback that really is a European problem. And the fact that now even it's less and less possible to demonstrate solidarity, etc. And actually, even here, as I said, I will demonstrate solidarity to the judges who are and the civil society organizations who are fighting for the rule of law in Poland, is particularly concerning. And I want to thank Maria, because she is one of the persons that is spending every day to really bring these problems to light, and to make understand to everyone in Poland and in Europe the importance of what's going on in the country. So, Maria, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and we are going to come back because we will want to know again what's going on in Poland.
Sure. With pleasure.
COVID and no COVID, also no COVID. In terms of the rule of law.
Thank you, Massimo. Thanks a lot.
It has been a pleasure, and to all of you who have been following us, thank you very much. We are going to come back with another update next week on Monday. This time we will go to France, and we will see what's happened there, which is not a pleasure either. And until there, please stay safe, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.